Welcome to the inaugural. This is the inaugural, the first. I think that's what inaugural means, the
Yes.
inaugural. Although they have the inaugural for the president, but it happens every 4 years, so it's not the first.
Well, except for this past one, which obviously didn't count.
It's the multi-inaugural, something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The last one, like,
This is the inaugural episode of the Comedian Americans podcast. We are the Comedian Americans. We're comedians, Tom, and we're Americans.
yes, I like it.
And we figured the serious have had their day. They've taken their shot. They've screwed things up. So now the comedians are going to show up, and we're going to solve every problem America has to face.
I like it,
including making really big overclaims. So put on your red, white, and blue nose. It's the Comedian Americans podcast. I am Dr. Dan, American, Kentuckian. So I'm old world America. Like I probably have some kind of raccoon, something in my closet if I really went deep.
Right.
Also comedy human. I have joke OCD, write jokes all day long. Love to turn America's news and America's existence, our existential challenges into jokes. Every week I have a new guest on, co-host. And this week, one of my favorite people, longtime comedian, multiple Letterman appearances.
Yeah.
Loved in the biz. He's from Philly,
multiple.
Now in New York City, playing a lot of pool. Step up and put your money down. He's ready.
That's right.
Tom Ryan.
Hey, Dan, thank you. I was probably I probably interrupted your introduction about 9 times.
That's fine. There's no
I have no skills with this stuff.
There is no structure.
Yeah, and I wish the viewers right now could have seen the last 6 to 7 minutes.
It was a flurry.
I was in a great mood today, and this is no fault of your own. I am not properly wired for the modern use of technology, and Zoom, it wouldn't work on my iPhone. It wouldn't work on my iPad.
It let you down, man.
Work on my iPhone is I have a lot of pool videos that I've taken of me playing pool, and they're jammed on my hard drive, and I don't know how to get them off of there, and I don't want to lose them because I have video of me making a few shots, believe it or not.
I will say this, right? I'll say this. In the battle between actual reality and simulated reality, you don't walk outside one day and just the sun isn't working. Well, oxygen is gone. Like it's always there. It's always pretty stable.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Now, but so what happened was, so Dan says, okay, I'm sending the link. And I go into meltdown mode, like I have been doing for years over technology. And I have this new MacBook Air. I finally, after 23 years of Windows, everybody, oh, you got to get MacBook Air, got to get MacBook, got to get MacBook. You'll love the video editing. You'll love the audio editing. Everything I try does not work. And you had to call me on my phone and talk me through how to get Zoom working.
Are you on your MacBook now or your phone?
My MacBook now. And now it works. But everything I do requires a phone call. And at some point,
that's okay, though.
Run out of lifelines.
It's okay.
And right now,
it's okay to be.
And Tony Deo talked me through another meltdown about a week ago. And here we go. So we can solve the problems of America, but I don't think we can solve the problems of Zoom and FaceTime and cloud storage. I just paid $9.99 more per month on cloud storage, and I can't tell if I have more room on there.
Right, you don't know. You don't know.
There you go.
It's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother language. It's literally like having, like if you have anybody actually knows that world and speaks that language, it's literally having them interpret for you between you and the great gods of technology and the language they speak.
But you have to be careful about using up too much of that technological favor capital. You know what I mean? Like I only called Tony when I was really desperate and had to get this one project done, and he couldn't have been more knowledgeable and on and on. So there we go.
All right. So there are saviors out there. They're tech saviors. That's who can walk on the tech waters.
Yeah. And
calm.
by the way, I got a cluttery background. That's the other thing.
That's
I was
genius.
hoping
That all geniuses are cluttered.
this is not, this is clutter and unfinished projects. There's some IKEA that's unbuilt right there.
You saw Einstein's hair. Look at his hair.
Perfect.
That's,
Every one of
that is
those
your Einstein's hair back
random
there.
locks was perfectly placed in advance. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. All
So-
right. So I think we're going to do that every time I do one of these. Like the guest gets 5 minutes to melt down
Yeah.
before we start.
From now on, people always say, I'll send you a link 10 minutes before. I have a new, make it 20.
2
Make it
days.
20. That's
2
right.
days early.
Mhm.
Well, the whole idea here is that this is, I want to blend like traditional talk shows, which are joke, and then a bunch of just kind of ramble with guests and podcasts. So I wanted to have jokes in it. I want us to cover, joke topics, and some of the stuff I've kind of worked on a little bit beforehand. And some of it's just regular podcasts that I want to do with comedians, within the idea that I really do want to hear what comedians think about all these issues and these news topics. And
Sure.
because it's far more interesting than what I'm going to find on CNN or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
you are a strong perspective.
I have become a bit addicted to politics, but most of it's still over my head. But I have my opinions and all that, and I have mostly it's just grievances. And I put one out on Twitter. I answered somebody that happened to have a large following. It was just a random, you know how Twitter catches you by surprise sometimes, is your best tweets go into what I like to call the Twitter bis. And then you casually throw one away. Last night I did. I was 2 Coors Lights into my night. And let me see what it's up to. It's got about 1,300 likes.
Really?
And responses. Yeah. And it was just me basically going, no, I no longer have faith in the justice system. And there is not going to be a comeuppance for Donald, which I thought the election would get him out of my system, and it didn't. And that kind of bothers me.
Well, he's still hanging around the bull ring, the arena, like the bullfight. He may not be in there, as the bull right now, but he's still throwing spears into the bull.
The influence, that's right. And the influence, obviously with masks and vaccines, how did that become politicized? We know exactly how it became politicized. And there you go.
That's the nature of this kind of politics. I posted a column today on Rhetoric Warriors, because I also do rhetoric stuff. Like this is mostly just, we're trying to be comics. We're trying to come up with new perspectives, interesting ideas, and funny shit. But I post more serious stuff over on Rhetoric Warriors. And today I posted essentially think of it this way. What's happened over the last 50, 75 years, ever since the blacklisting and the Red Scare of, McCarthyism and all that kind of stuff is what started this. Mm-hmm. Essentially, they taught us to be suspect of each other, that there are people within America that are too liberal, that are communist, that are socialist, and those are the real enemy. And so Nixon picked it up. Nixon was on the McCarthy Commission. Like he was one of McCarthy's acolytes. Yeah. And he picked that up, and then it went into Reagan really smoothed it out, such a smooth, amplified it.
Men were free.
Right.
And then we go down the path of socialized medicine back when men were free and people, men were free. He's fighting for freedom.
All that stuff. So it's literally us against them, except for the them is us. So it's taking the us and splitting it into 2. Yeah. And I likened it, think of it, you had a military, you had an army, and you went in, you let a foreign power come in and blare constantly to that army that half of the other half of the army was their enemy. And then the foreign power just sits back and goes, let's watch what happens. Well, so liberals have been turned into an enemy.
A complete enemy. And I have friends who are on the right, and I see posts from them like, how do they even talk to me? I'm a vermin. you know,
Right. No,
I'm
it's
a rat.
literally like the Nazi
I
rhetoric of dehumanizing, yeah,
dehumanize none of
slander.
that. Yeah. And I mean, and I feel like and we of course dance around politics and don't talk as often, but it's like next time I get a call from, I can think of a person in particular, you don't want to talk to me. You do know that I scatter when somebody turns the lights on, right? I scatter like a cockroach. You do know that you're talking to a cockroach, right? You know, from now on, that's how I'm talking to. Oh no, I'm a vermin. I'm a rat, and I will just like, instead of fighting it, I'm going to turn into the skid
It's
and just go,
literally though, it's
I'm a
literally the main play of propaganda, which is to pick an invisible enemy, or
yeah,
to take some kind of invisible evil and apply it to a visible enemy. And the weaker and the closer they are, the better. It was the same thing that the Nazis did with the Jews.
yeah,
All these cultures would pick the Jews because the Jews were a wandering culture that would
yeah,
come into a majority culture, and they were always a minority, so they were easy, pickings.
yeah, yeah.
And what they've done here is literally just take that technique and
Mhm.
turn it on liberals. And
Yes,
so it's everybody's like, oh, the country's divided. I'm like, no, the country is propagandized.
yes, and the key feature is obviously, as many have said, and it's so true: repeat, repeat, repeat,
Yeah,
repeat.
75 years of it. They're still calling people
75
communists and
commie,
socialists.
commie, socialist, commie, commie, commie. As soon as Obama got elected, it went up so hard. Commie, commie. He's a commie,
So here's
and
the
it's
question.
not
The
a
question
commie.
is like, what do you do about it? And so like what you're talking about is like go to turn into the skid. And this is what comedians do. We amplify, we
Yeah,
exaggerate. Like, okay, you're right. I'm a rat.
yeah.
I love, liberalism so much. I have a thing where I do stand up where I'm like, I believe in everybody. I believe in every side of every issue. So like,
Uh-huh.
I'm so
That's
liberal. Like I married a man. Like
right.
that's how down I am with the
Just to
gay
prove,
experience.
just to own the right. Yeah, that's
No,
great.
just this was owning the left that I just because you can own the left too. It's like I take their stuff to an extreme, take the
Yeah,
rights
I
to an
got it.
extreme.
Right.
Like I'm a straight man.
Oh,
I'm sorry for
to
taking a gay man
extremeness.
away,
Yeah,
but
got it. Yeah.
I really want to understand the experience.
No, well, the super far left can be very, in my book, they're hurting our team. And yes, I have fallen into the team red, team blue trap as designed by them, but I'm guilty as charged.
I like it though. You're a rat, Tom the rat.
Tom the rat. And anytime anybody turns on a light switch, I
Tom the
scat
roach.
like a cockroach.
So
That's
what
like,
do they accuse you of? What do your friends think you're too liberal
well,
about?
no, they accuse me, like they go, but you're not really a liberal, because um, they can't, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like differentiate?
No, it's not they can't differentiate. They can't blend together the fact that I'm a liberal, but then they have to, I can't like, but I like you. You can't possibly be a liberal. No, I am.
Are these friends or comedian friends?
Comedian friends over the years,
Like who?
No, no names. No names.
Why? I mean,
I
why is
don't need the
politics
headache.
a
I don't need the headache.
that's funny.
And believe me, I don't need the headache,
So these are comedian right wingers.
Yeah, they're, I mean, we all have friends on the left and right, or relatives on the left and right, and you know, boy, there's a word I was looking for. Now that's going to bug me. Not justify, but when you can't bring two separate thoughts together, that, well, that
Oh
can't
yeah.
possibly be true. You know what I mean?
Not
You know the word.
rectify. They can't.
Uh,
What's the word?
yeah, I don't know. And believe me, I had COVID about a year ago. No, about back in November. There are times when I think I might have a little bit of the COVID fog still lingering. Occasional words escape me. On the other hand, I don't really care anymore. It's like age would have done that to me anyway.
So if we had like somebody on here from the right, like a comedian, I need to start doing more right, leaning people and
Sure.
just in general in this stuff because it activates everything. And again, on Rhetoric Warriors, I do conversions on the right. I have them on and I teach them to I bring them back to thinking.
Yeah.
because there's a big difference in, having a shoot into your brain that's giving you script and actually processing that script. And if you get too much script coming in, you can't process anymore. And that's
Mhm.
essentially what happened to the right.
Yeah.
There's so much, and again, it's the anti-liberal script.
Yeah.
It's this caricature of
Caricature.
liberals
Yeah.
that has, is the dominant thing that they've been taught.
Yeah.
And so, like, let's apply it to a story here, like Cuomo. This week came out. It came out. The report about Cuomo came out, and
Sure.
you're a New Yorker, right?
Yeah. And I've been mad at this state for as long as I've lived here in terms of their bureaucratic inefficiencies. And believe it or not, I hate the high taxes of New York State. And I believe the high taxes of New York State give the anti-tax crowd plenty of ammunition to go, why should I? I kind of agree with that. Like, get your act together, New York State.
Yeah.
And yet I'm not a Grover Norquist kind of never, ever, ever any new taxes, ever, ever. And that there is a stubbornness on the right that absolutely prevents more taxation. And then the rich already pay their fair share. Well, we know it's all been getting redistributed through the various levers they pull. Obviously, the minimum wage still $7.25.
So don't you think part of the problem is like with taxes? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's like some of the thoughts I've had about taxes over the
Such a
years.
main issue. I mean, yeah.
But it's some things like this, like you pay into a general fund. You don't get to choose what's done with your taxes.
Yeah.
Supposedly, your representatives protect your interests to get the tax money to the right place, but we never see what happens to it. So if like you say you paid $5,000 in taxes this year,
Right.
okay, and you're like, well, I'd like for 1,000 to go to this. If you could distribute your own taxes, people would probably be a lot happier with it.
Yeah, probably. And what has been happening, and it started with Reagan, that the get the government off our backs, and we need to be more efficient with our taxation, cut taxes, supply side economics, and
Yeah, but it's a transparency issue, right? I mean, it's all a transparency issue.
Yeah.
You don't know
so
where that money goes.
Yeah, and what I've said for years is to friends who argue, so I've said supply side economics, in my opinion, and I don't know what, I don't know the detail. In my opinion, supply side economics was a $28 trillion mistake, because that's how far in debt we are. And you keep saying, oh no, it will pay for itself for 40 years. It will pay for itself. Pro-growth, Club for Growth. What a pompous title for a club for growth. It's all growth,
Yeah, it's good rhetoric. So, like, okay, so rhetoric is utopian or rhetoric is either utopian or dystopian.
Yeah.
I'm selling you utopia and shoving dystopia onto everybody else, or vice versa.
Right.
So supply side is like complete promise with zero reality. It doesn't matter.
It's a denial of reality, because they've been denying the reality of the fact that government can be so efficient and run like a lean, mean machine. That's not how it works. And until you get that, stop going more and more trillions and trillions and trillions into debt. So are you
pro Cuomo or not?
No, I never really liked, there were times when the pandemic first hit, I thought he was good on TV and like, all right, this guy's rallying the troops. I was never crazy about him. No, never been. But I don't think, I don't know if, I can't remember the last time I liked a New York governor. I've lived here 15 years. And I was negotiating with the state way back when. I'll bring it down into personal terms. Negotiating with the state, I had fallen behind on my taxes, which happens. The recession hit. I'm negotiating with them to make a monthly payment to pay off my debt. And as I'm negotiating, I had $7,000 in my bank account. They came in and wiped it out. And then I got evicted from my apartment because I didn't have rent money, because there wasn't much work happening. And I've had I've been mad at New York State since then from a personal standpoint. And people say, personal responsibility. You should, yeah. I caused the global recession that crushed the industry that I was in, and I'm sorry I didn't pivot. And
Well,
and the day
it's this
the day
weird thing
after
too, right? Of being an
what's that?
individual. It's this weird
Hmm.
thing too of being an individual, trying to have a
Yeah,
relationship with an institution, right?
yeah,
Like you need an institution on your side to have a relationship with an institution.
yeah.
That's why, like Trump, he keeps throwing lawyers at lawyers.
Oh, yes, he's been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah.
Ties everything up in court. There
Yeah.
has never been, I don't think, a human being in the history of the world that has used the courts more than him. And if we could see the box score on, let's see the stats, who's the number one person in the history of the world that has had more legal cases, I think he wins hands down.
Well, it's a mobster technique,
Yeah.
right? You throw anything. Like I keep telling people, they keep looking at the right and going, how come these, they keep doubling down on like the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the,
Yeah.
these guys trying to not admitting what has happened on January 6th and stuff like that. I'm like, have you ever talked to a criminal? Have you ever seen a criminal and that's testifying that says, yeah, I did that?
Right.
They never admit it.
Never.
That's the nature of criminal.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's I think we've all, I mean, I've always been a little bit of I've leaned more pessimistic toward optimistic, but I think the past year and a half, and I would say almost the 5 years, but the past 5 years, 6 years, but especially the past year and a half, you lose faith after a while. And then you
I think you're right. Like you lose faith in definitely the media stuff, the way it treats it and the way it comes at you. But let's look at the Cuomo thing. Okay. So you tell me, like, so he's accused by what, 12 women of some type of inappropriate behavior, talking, touching, leering, slurping, everything that he could possibly do.
Absolutely. I believe
he seems like a guy that would have done that, right?
Yes, he does. Yeah. And
there that old school white dude.
Yeah. And grew up in power.
Yeah.
And there's enough evidence of just people going, yeah, he's a real bully. There's enough people that have like left government and said, yeah, the guy's a real bully, he yells at people and this and that. After a while you go, makes sense. Now, what bothers me about the Cuomo thing is how swiftly and efficiently the wheels of justice moved against him. And meanwhile, why can't the left make the wheels of justice move as swiftly as the left is doing Cuomo in? Why can't you apply the same methods?
Because he's, in fact, this weekend, his lawyer went on and used a little bit of the right's tactics, which is to attack the accusers.
Yeah.
She went on and did some discrediting on CNN. Yeah. And he's kind of, moving towards the Scarface, nobody come, everybody,
Yeah.
And so like, it looks so weird for the left to do that. The sort of blocking and the lying and the, all that kind of stuff.
Throw the monkey wrenches.
Again, it's mob tactics of courtroom tactics, attack the accuser. But the left, because the left likes to, run on a moral cloud about itself, it can't do that.
Yeah.
So it can't slow down the justice system.
No. Oh.
Even the stuff he was saying when it first came out, like all the traditional smoke screens that you see from the right, that this is politically motivated.
Right.
That's the big one. I mean, that's how Trump's just now trying to keep his taxes still away from Congress.
Witch hunt. And all the evidence of him saying on camera during debates, oh, I'll release it as soon as the audit's over. I'll release them as soon as the audit's over. And that not one person I've ever known on the right is bothered by, hey, they all lie. No.
No. Instant false equivalency.
This is way beyond.
But that kind of constant pivoting, immoral, unethical pivoting, right? Is essentially the tactic. And if you're going to use that, then the only way to cut through it is to have a judge who will go, no, that you can't use that tactic. That's dismissed. That's not allowed. Because if it's just general people and nobody has the power to stop that kind of, communication, you can go on forever with smoke screening.
Oh, years and years and years. Well, look who's been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah, he's
Former guy, as they call him now. It's
so
insane. And it makes you lose complete faith. I've pretty much lost faith.
well, I don't know if I've lost faith in it because I understand what's happening. And again, like it doesn't really when it's rhetoric versus rhetoric like that, it's a rhetoric storm. It's just techniques. And it's frustrating and infuriating if you're a rationalist and an ethical person to watch the unethical operate and nobody to come in and clean it up. That's the issue. There's no power sitting around cleaning up what the unethical are doing right now. So they get to do whatever they want, which is infuriating for people who follow rules.
Infuriating. And we can blame your former state for all of it.
Yeah, well, everybody's state eventually takes some kind of punch.
Hey, listen, I will never forgive my home state of Pennsylvania for going red in 2016, ever. Now, luckily, that was not the deciding state that put Trump in office. But I'll never, I will forgive them. They went blue in 2020, according to the polls.
According to the roaches.
Right.
You listen to the roaches and they're fake.
Yeah, roaches. Can roaches vote now? I didn't know that. But Kentucky, come on, Kentucky, stop it with Mitch.
It's not Kentucky's fault. Kentucky is too stupid to protect itself from politicians. Come on.
But then that's, come on.
That's what they do, though. It's like, it's like the Senate taking Montana and Wyoming and shit like that, because nobody's protecting those states. There's no educated population there going, hey, Mitch, it's a problem.
Montana's made plenty of good decisions over the years, I think. I like Montana.
Who did they pick? Aren't they pretty red?
Tester, their governor, they had a Democratic governor for a while. And I find them to be reasonable. Wyoming is just hardcore red, fine. But I don't even know. Who is that? Barrasso? Is he Wyoming? But Mitch is such a uniquely deplorable figure.
He's a power figure, though. Hey, if Kentucky got rid of him, Kentucky loses all power. Like, who's ever going to listen to Kentucky about anything?
I don't know. I think Kentucky will be fine. It's a good state. I like visiting there. It's like that's.
You don't visit Kentucky.
Oh, I've worked Lexington many times.
That's not Kentucky. You visited comedy clubs.
Paducah, right.
with comedy. Yeah. Paducah. I lived in Kentucky, and you would not want to visit the Kentucky I lived in.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
You would not be hanging out well going, these people are okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's switch a little bit. We'll get out of politics. Yeah. The Olympics was the last couple of weeks. Did you watch any of the Olympics?
Now over the years, I've been watching the Olympics since 1968, Mexico City. I love the Olympics.
That was the high jump, right? Wasn't that the 30-foot high jump?
Bob Beeman and the guys on the podium raising the gloves.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old. This is exciting. This is cool. And love the Olympics throughout my life. I think I tend to be a perfectionist. Here's an anecdote that I always use. This defines how I go through life. I tend to be a perfectionist, and once something gets a little bit sabotaged, I sabotage the whole thing. When I was in, I think it was the second grade, I had a decent baseball card collection, and the prize of that collection was a Sandy Koufax card, and I was a lefty. He was at the peak of his powers. I think he retired so it might have been first grade. It was just after he retired.
Okay.
But I was a fan because, a left-handed pitcher, that's what I want to be. I had a Sandy Koufax card. I'm sitting in my classroom and I have a bunch of baseball cards on my desk, and I show my neighbor, I got a Sandy Koufax card. The nun sees it and she comes and takes the Sandy Koufax card. You should be behaving. And I go, okay, you know what? I took the rest of my baseball cards out and I started showing the neighbor. If my collection is now tainted and ruined, I want all of it to be gone. So
did she tear it up?
No, she took it.
And they can give it back?
Never gave it back. I was too young to go, hey, can I get my cards back? And I always think that someday I'm going to see on eBay, Sandy Koufax, 19, Sister Mary Margaret.
Owned by one nun.
Yeah, exactly. Some nun makes millions of it.
Ah,
So
man.
the parallel with the Olympics is this. I'm going, all right, first of all, I hate that there's all this back and forth with, are we going to have them? Are we not going to have them? What about COVID? And then you hear, oh, so-and-so got COVID. Well, then it's not a perfect Olympics anymore. And then no fans. Well, it's even less perfect. And then the one that did me in was at the sprinter. She smoked a little bit of pot. Now, she should have probably known it's going to show up in a test. However, the Olympic Committee also should have known that pot is becoming more and more accepted around the world. Maybe we should knock that off the list. And that really bothered me because she was like the Flo-Jo of this Olympics.
Right.
A character. She's great. She was somebody I could get behind. And all of a sudden, it's like, I don't want to watch these Olympics.
But there are thousands of athletes there. Like,
I know
there's going to be some, you're not going to get a perfect.
Oh, I know. And that's almost a character flaw on my part. Too much of a perfectionist. So, I mean, I kind of follow it on Twitter a little bit. I see some highlights but usually the Olympics draw me into where I'm hooked and this one hasn't. And it's a bummer.
Yeah. There was a equestrian rider from Australia, I think, or maybe New Zealand, who was pulled for drugs too, for cocaine.
Oh,
it's like, how could that affect anything? It's a show jumper. Like, like what was he doing? Talking to the horse faster? Was he?
Yeah. It is strange. Like, they just test for steroids. You're allowed
but
to
even drink. That, like the guy who, like some of the swimmers, were saying, yeah, it's nice to swim in a race with, at least 70% of the other people on drugs. That stuff never goes away. Did you see Icarus, the documentary?
No.
It's about a guy who was a pretty decent bicycle guy and wanted to bump up and see what would happen if he took steroids for a year, if he could actually bump up into the top. And so he documented it all, and he got the steroids from a guy in Russia. And the Russia guy ended up being the guy who ran all the Olympic steroids for the entire Olympic team.
Wow.
And he taught him all this stuff and showed all of it. And that's why Russia was the Russian committee or whatever, because it was because of him.
Name change. Yeah.
And so he was basically saying, yeah, this is ridiculous, that they think that they can detect these drugs. Like, it's
wow.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It's no easy answers on that one. I don't know. Like baseball, it's that was a bummer that and people argue, hey, who cares? Let them take stories. But
yeah, I mean, come on, who didn't know? I mean,
I know.
Barry Bonds, who gets bigger in their 40s?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, he should just walk up to the podium with a hypodermic hanging out of his ass. It's like, oh, what? No, I didn't do that. No, it's
You know what would be an interesting thing is to have a separate baseball league where steroids are legal.
Called the NFL. Just call it the NFL.
Maybe, yeah, right.
Again, guys don't get 300, 325 that can move like that without, performance enhancing bullshit.
I mean, I would hope that they're all on the up and up.
Yeah. I knew a guy who, when I taught at the University of Louisville, Howard Schnellenberger had come in there from the University of Miami, and he was the first one to bump up Miami by basically allowing, emptying all the prisons into the university and letting anything in. And so he did the same thing in Louisville, and he came in and like, this guy was, he's like 6'2", 6'3", maybe 240. And he was a really smart guy. He was a really great student. And I asked him one day, because he was a senior on the football team. I'm like, so what are you going to do after you graduate? And he's like, I'm going to go in the NFL for 4 years and get vested into the retirement plan. And then I'm going to quit and go to med school with that money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're 240. He goes, I'm a long snapper. He goes, I'm going to take steroids. The last year, I'm going to put on 30 pounds, 30, 40 pounds,
Yeah.
play 4 years and get out and go to med school. And that's
Wow.
exactly what he did.
Wow.
He was with the Steelers, I think, for 4 years as a long snapper.
Long snapper.
Yep.
Yeah. I've done that on my grade school football team. I was the center and the long snapper. I learned how to long snap for punts.
Yeah,
It's pressure.
it is pressure.
You got to be accurate, and you got to hike it and then get prepared to get hit.
So it is a weird thing to watch sports because they're so pervasive and they're such a strong symbol across cultures when all these countries suddenly come together and it represents so much politically and regionally and this sort of identity issues and all this stuff. Then to watch it, as a thing that you can sort of see from the outside, but then when you go inside of it, like they do this constantly in the Olympics. Like I always said, man, I never wanted anybody I was related to make it to the Olympics because apparently that causes cancer in all your relatives or tragedies. It's like they will. So the dramatists, like the Olympics is the dramatist, greatest moment.
When they started the up close and personal, they started finding characters and profiling them, and then they start drawing. Yes, you're absolutely.
And that adds to the drama of like, this is a horse. It's a horse jumping over poles. But it's Bruce Springsteen's daughter.
Yeah, she struggled for and good for her. But they'll turn it into the obstacles that she had to overcome.
Well, and it was interesting with Simone Biles, right? When she ditched out and said, look, I'm having mental health issues, that screwed up the story because it's supposed to be you have all these issues, you overcome it. It's not supposed to be you look perfect. As I tweeted as soon as right after it happened, I'm like, oh, the little robot girl broke because she looked like such, so perfect and everything. But then we got to see the actual, mental health of these athletes come to the surface during the story.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend on the phone and I said, it'd be fun to go. And I didn't mean this as any disparaging toward Simone Biles, but wouldn't it be funny to just go back through sports history and goes, there's a ground ball to Buckner through. Oh, he has the twisties. And then, like was it Scott Norwood has the field goal to win the twisties.
The twisties again.
But I was actually glad that, mental health issues. Well, what are they talking? Get more specific. And then they showed some footage of her falling in practice, completely uncoordinated, landing on her back and all that. And I go, okay, that makes sense. Like that explanation was good enough for me.
Yeah, but again, that's sort of turning this bigger issue of actual mental health. Like they showed video of her when she was maybe 5 or 6 doing the same stuff, in a meet, like not the twisties, but doing this amazing stuff. And I'm like, because every super athlete I know, and I've been around a lot of it by teaching at universities. Every super athlete I know is messed up mentally and emotionally because they've been treated differently than everybody else. They lived a different life than everybody else. Like I remember I wrote for the Southern Sports Awards one year, which is just the 13 SEC, states, and they give out their own like sports Emmys. And it's just broadcast regionally. And I was brought in to punch up scripts and stuff like that. And so at one point I was riding in the van back to the hotel with Shannon Miller and like 2 or 3 of the other like girls from the Olympic squad because they gave them something and they were like at the height of their ness, and just listening to them, they were like regular teenage vapid headed girls talking about each other, talking shit.
That's
and
great.
I'm like, how come that's not
profiled?
Part of the story of this, the humanity of these people, because they're completely immature, as most athletes are.
Of course, and they mythologize beyond belief. Yeah, exactly. Right.
I had a guy when I taught the University of Louisville who came in from a junior college and, was a really good player. But like he failed my first 2 exams, like in the teens, like he was, and he finally came to me and he's like, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, what do you mean what's going on? He's like, well, at my junior college, I got A's and everything.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, I said,
Yeah.
this is a 19 and this is an intro level course. It's not
Wow.
even hard.
A
And he's
night.
like, well, I'll go to the, tutors or whatever. Next time, same thing. He brought his parents the second time to find out what was going on. And
Wow.
I'm like, no, I don't
Can't
talk to
do it.
parents.
I don't do that. And you're not gonna, yeah, you're not gonna push them through the system, right? You
What-
couldn't.
He was literally, and he was a nice kid. He was just confused by how
Yeah.
come I'm not a genius.
Right. Right.
Like, well,
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah. Check your stats.
But it doesn't fit the
Yeah.
story, like you talk about the seamlessness of what you want from the Olympics, which is
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
uplifting,
Mhm.
mythology.
Right. What, and it's the twisties. That's the name. I had never heard that term before. It's the yips in golf.
Right.
I remember Chuck Knobloch on the Yankees, second baseman.
Yeah. Weird.
He messed up his career. Steve Sachs had the same thing. I play enough pool to where under a pressure situation, let's say you have to do a tiny little tap shot, just tap it so that the cue ball doesn't stray too far up table. Sometimes you're going, all right, the touch has to be so soft. You go, good, and you can get the yips in pool. I get it, but that's part of the game.
Right. That's part of the game.
Those managing, and believe me, there's not even anybody watching except your opponent when you're in the pool league. You can't imagine a global audience. So I get it. But Chuck Knobloch, one of the things I read on Wikipedia that made me laugh, and I felt bad for the guy, even at the time, he lost the ability to throw from second base to the first baseman. And it got traction, and he's in New York. I completely get how it would exponentially get worse. But in the Wikipedia page, it said, and one time he actually had an easy grounder to second, easy throw over to first base for an out. And he forgot how to throw because his mind was just, and he threw it into the stands and it hit Keith Olbermann's mom in the head. I just thought, oh, that's great. Keith Olbermann's mom gets hit in the head,
Oh, it's awesome.
Poor guy. And then he tried, I think he went to some psychologists. He tried to, once it's happening, that's tough to rein it back in. So he basically had to retire prematurely from Major League Baseball, which is sad.
Did you get that without, again, like sports is our mythology. So we want perfect heroes. We want massive, wins. We want all these
That's
things
right.
that give us this huge stimulation of emotion and story and catharsis.
Yep.
And when it gets complicated by things like performance drugs and the yips and the twisties and actual, the fact that these people have been abused, like Simone Biles was abused by the doctor.
Exactly.
It's like, how much are you doing for these people, these actual human beings? To keep them from the ugliness of this kind of lifestyle.
Man. Well, I guess that's what it is. We go to sports to prevent reality from intruding into our little sports bubble. That's right. Like I'm way more addicted to the Phillies than I should be. And I should not let multimillionaires who are half my age have an effect on my mood for the day.
That's hilarious.
But I must admit that in the last week, I've been in a slightly better mood because the Phillies have won 8 games in a row and are now in first place. And I know I'm getting set up for a big letdown, but that's okay.
I was working on a bit, so I'm building this one-person show. It's about 70% done of Revenge of the Marriage Counselor's Ex-Husband. And it's basically all relationship stuff, from a comedian's perspective as opposed to a therapist's perspective. And I talk about the fact that human beings are so weird about relationships. We create relationships with everything. And like for women, a lot of times it's, maybe a relationship with their hair. Like you can ask most women, like what, and they'll tell you like with depth.
Yes.
It betrayed me this day.
Yes.
I threatened I'll cut you,
It's strong relationship. Yes.
But with men, it's sports, like these weird, like everybody's like, oh, men aren't emotional. I'm like, watch them watch a
Yeah,
game.
that's great. That's great. Absolutely.
The depth of emotion and the betrayal.
Oh,
It's every soap opera. Like just the pain of, oh my God, I can't believe the 49ers let me down again. I'm going to start seeing the Bears. Like,
yeah. Listen to sports talk radio in any major leagues, a major city that has a major sports team, and tell us it's not a, yeah.
well, and they tell you, like the story of men is like men don't express their emotions. I'm like, watch them watch a game.
Yes.
They will
Yes.
not keep in any emotions
And
until it gets to the point where it's so much pain that they have to shut down.
yeah, yeah, I do things like a couple years ago when the Eagles lost a particularly heartbreaking playoff game. I remember I used my iPad to take a video of me deleting my NFL app from my phone. And I remember sending it to Kostaki Economopoulos, he's the football comedian.
Right.
And I had to send him, I go, this is how I feel about football now. It's dead to me. Done.
It's
And
too much pain, right?
it was brutal.
Too much
And
emotional pain.
that was years of abuse from the Philadelphia Eagles directed at me for about 55 years of my life. And then in I think it was the 2017 season and the Super Bowl was in 2018 or whatever that was, they finally won a Super Bowl. And I still can't get used to that because I'm so used to the script going a different way. And yet I remember telling people, I go,
Did you
I
go
will,
back to them when they won the Super Bowl? Did you?
oh yeah. And I was already back in. Yeah. I remember telling people I will never take a Philadelphia sports team loss as harshly because we finally got that final monkey off our back. The
You
Phillies
got
have
a
only
little
won
something to
2
hold
World
on to.
Series. Yeah,
You got a little security blanket.
yes, because it's a victory starved city, but we can check all 4 boxes of the 4 sports teams. And I'm like, I got to live to see it all. There were people in Chicago, born and raised, died at age 88, that never saw Cubs. So I have
Yeah.
no complaints. I have no complaints.
Well, let me hit you with some of the jokes that I wrote during the Olympics, and you can
Yes.
tag these or tell me what you think.
I never come up with anything off the cuff.
Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
So there's a Chinese Olympic gymnast named Dong Dong.
Uh-huh. Dong dong.
I mean, why isn't that guy the biggest star?
That's a great name. And I mean, and people, well, oh, you shouldn't make fun of, but that's a great name.
That's a great name. I don't care who you are.
Male or
Admire
female.
the name.
And
Admire it.
it's a guy.
Yeah.
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 And his brother Ding, obviously.
There's some just great names. That's one of my little sub pleasures I think about the Olympics because it's throwing you around the world.
Yeah.
And the names are so cool. Like the Italy's lightweight doubles rowing team they won gold was named Valentina Rodini and Frederica Cesarini.
Oh man, that sounds like I would order that off the menu.
Just watching during the rowing, and I don't care about rowing, but they're like
Right.
Rodini and Cesarini,
Yeah.
are coming up. I'm like, yeah, I'll watch this.
The Italians are heavy on the vowels, and then you go into Eastern Europe, and they less and less vowels and more consonants. It's funny how those names they're a challenge.
I was watching volleyball. Do you watch like the difference now between indoor volleyball and sand volleyball, beach volleyball? It's kind of fun to watch, but like if you watch indoor volleyball now, it looks so weird. I was trying to figure out how they came up with that sport. It's like, hey, we've only got about 50 feet and there's about 80 people here who want to play a game. What are we going to do? We got one ball.
One ball. That's right. And then
I just throw a net in the middle of them.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, look at soccer. What could be more basic than that? Like and yet There you go. Yeah, volleyball. Same with table tennis.
I thought some different ways to make soccer more interesting. Like I think every 10 minutes, like it ought to be built in the game that everybody on both sides has to, they each get a ball, like, and then they get to just charge at the other team's goal, and the goalie has like a minute
Yeah,
of just
yeah.
being pounded.
Pummeled. Get some dodgeball into the throw some dodgeball into it. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is not enough soccer balls. It would be more
Yeah,
interesting.
That's right. I find one of the I generally watch come World Cup time. I don't understand the strategies, but you can see the momentum shift. It's like, okay, I've finally accepted. Okay, I get how people are into this. But to me, the most dominant feeling, and of course, I'm on the left, so I listen
You
to
roach. Here comes a roach bit.
my feelings. But when I watch soccer, I just find it frustrating. It's just frustrating. Kick. No, you didn't get it through that. Like kick that. And it's just like so much just tangled up in midfield and you get no progress. But then once you get that release, it's just a release of all that frustration. So I guess the payoff works, even on a 1-0 game.
I never get that. Like when I watch soccer, maybe it is a capitalist versus the rest of the poor poverty world, games, but like that one score, like football, like basketball to me is the most, like it's just constant rewards, constant money. It's a capitalist sport. It's like, so much winning.
Yeah, right. That's good. That's very true.
Yeah. So let's I'll tell you what, let's do a couple other bits and then we'll let you out of here, and hopefully your technology and your sports teams won't torture you anymore today.
You actually helped me out with setting up my Zoom on my new MacBook. So this is helpful. And the Tony Deo thing the other day fixed. So my meltdowns actually lead to me reaching out for solutions with my Mac. So maybe
they keep you connected to the rest of the world. Otherwise,
I think so. Yeah.
So have you seen, there's 3 new movies out that I've seen in the last week and a half or so. I don't know if you've seen all these, but spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about Green Knight, Suicide Squad, and Quiet Place 2.
No, don't even know the titles. That's how out of the loop I am.
Well, movies, because of the pandemic, were just shoved into the backspace of, culture. It's like, what? I don't remember those. And I've basically gone through the entire library of media now. Like I can look at Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and I can find nothing that I haven't seen 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I've seen a couple of the new ones. Zeke and I went to see The Green Knight, which is a retelling of a Canterbury tale, I think, or a St. Arthur, King Arthur's tale. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a medieval story. Right. And they decided to make a movie out of it because they were going to show you that they can use an unlikable main character where nothing happens and still make a Hollywood movie, which they did not. It is so unbearably slow.
Wow. So somebody greenlit somebody's fantasy to prove a point.
I think the only way it got made was because of the pandemic.
Yeah, maybe it's amazing what gets greenlit as we.
Yeah, it's weird. And
incredible.
So clearly they'd done some manipulation of the the elements to try to get it made. Like Dev Patel is the main character, which fine, he's okay. Like I wouldn't call him a major movie star who can carry a movie, but it's King Arthur's Knights. It's the whitest thing ever made.
Okay. Yeah.
And they have an Indian guy. They're like, put an Indian guy in there, man.
Indian guy.
And I'm like,
I don't know who that is. That actor.
Dev Patel was in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Slumdog Millionaire.
Okay, yeah.
He's the main guy in that. He was one of the first, his first thing. He was in like the Marigold Hotel or something. He's been in a lot.
Okay, I would know him then without realizing.
So let me if you want to know what the story's about, it's basically what happens when vegans meet King Arthur.
That's great. Hey, I watch this thing.
The Green Knight, you should. It's worth watching, but like my son and I went to see it at the movie. It's the first movie I've seen at the theater.
How old is Zeke now?
He'll be 19 in 2 weeks.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Happy
Moving to San Diego for a big video
birthday.
editor job.
Oh man, congrats
Skipping
to him. I
college.
remember him as a little toddler.
Yeah,
Toddler.
crazy.
That's
But
great.
the story is it's kind of a Shakespeare Henry V story. There's a prince who is partying too much and won't grow up, and so his mom concocts this thing that she does magically and conjures this knight made of wood. He's basically a tree, and he just shows up at King Arthur's court and challenges somebody to fight him. And so the kid says, "I'll fight you."
Yeah.
And then the Green Knight, all he does is lower his head and he basically says, "Whatever you do to me, I'm going to do to you in a year."
Uh-huh.
And so the kid cuts his head off, and
Oh,
the Green Knight picks his head up, laughs, and rides out and says, "I'll see you in a year."
oh,
Which, okay, all right, there's a crazy
wow.
story going on. Nothing
Yeah.
happens for the whole year. And then he goes out, nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. He basically shows up, and the Green Knight is like, "Well, you ready?"
Yeah.
And it is
Right.
like, he does all sorts of unlikable things, never does anything heroic. And
Yeah.
then just before he's going to be killed, he has this vision of a horrible life that he would have if he just left, if he ran away.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decides, go ahead and do it. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah. You
And then
ready?
the Green Knight goes, "Okay, then you won. Now that you're brave enough to be beheaded,
Ah,
go live your life."
wow.
Which is fine if the main character deserves it, if he earned it.
Yeah. But he didn't do
Didn't do
anything.
anything.
No. Got it.
So, but it's worth watching.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Well, how do you I don't understand. None of us understand how Hollywood works in terms of what makes it true. I was scrolling through old TV shows the other day, somehow went off on a Wikipedia tangent and was just, and Gilbert Gottfried does that great bit about who sold Hogan's Heroes to the net. Who sold Hogan's Heroes to the networks? That's a great bit. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. But I had the same thought about just an old title that I remembered. There was a sitcom made back in the 60s or early 70s that lasted, I think, more than a season, called My Mother the Car.
I remember the title. I don't remember watching it.
And it was about the guy's mother was a talking car. And people sat down every week and go, okay. And how much power do you have? Was it almost like, watch this?
Watch this. They'll watch it.
Get
They'll
a
watch it.
sitcom about a talking car on the air, and it'll do okay. You got it. And it did.
There've been a few talking car shows, right? Knight
And that's
Rider
true.
and
You're right. You're
Christine.
right. What is that?
His girlfriend was a
Cars,
car.
the movie Cars. You're right. So there you go. It's not
Our
as
buddy Dan Whitney, just like that.
with old Dan Whitney as Mater.
All right. So the second movie, Suicide Squad, which is named that because about 30 minutes in, you feel like drowning yourself in popcorn butter. Like they did not commit suicide soon enough.
Wow.
That movie was
That's a
so
good
bad.
review.
It's gotten good reviews actually on Rotten Tomatoes. It was like 95 on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm like, if you watched it, Tom, you'd be like, these jokes are so trite and predictable. I mean, they would embarrass a clown to tell that joke.
And yet, I mean, I'm losing more and more faith, so it doesn't. So it's why I don't watch movies anymore. That many. I mean, I just, most of them disappoint, I think.
Well, I'll say this. Did you see Quiet Place 1?
No.
Watch it. It's very watchable. They do a great job of keeping you in suspense, and it's these creatures, you can't make any noise, or they just show up and they eat you.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of tension, a lot of drama in it. Do a great job. And Quiet Place 2 is good too. They do just fine. There's some real big plot holes in it. But it's like, I was like, if these creatures have super hearing, how come they can't hear the dramatic soundtrack? Every time they're lurking around. It's like, okay.
Exactly.
But like, it's almost like a fairy tale that we want to happen. Like, if you're loud and you make a lot of noise, these creatures just show up and eat you.
Oh,
Imagine that with Trump.
or every bar should have one of those. Yeah, that would be great with Trump, or every bar. It's a nice thought. In an alternate universe, that it could happen.
Yeah, I think we're just the opposite. Like if you ever stop talking and talking shit and making noise, then they would show up and get you. They get the quiet ones.
Yeah, of course. That's the way it rolls.
And I don't know if do you know who John Cena is? You know, the guy, the wrestler, he's basically the White Rock. Like they throw him, he's all
No.
steroided up and they throw him into movies. He's been in a ton of commercials and stuff.
Mhm.
He is such a horrible actor. I mean, he makes The Rock look
Really?
like
Yeah.
spelt just like Meryl Streep level.
It's Olivier, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like any emotion. Can you show anything?
Nope.
No,
Nothing.
nothing. Totally straight. So, all right, Tom, you got anything to finish out? Like,
Let's see.
any final thoughts? Are you wearing masks? You're vaxxed, right?
I'm double vaxxed. I feel personally safe. I figure the odds of me catching this are very slim. So therefore I won't be passing it to anybody else, because I'm in the super category of invincible. I had COVID and I'm double vaxxed.
Ah,
So
okay.
there you go, man. I'm invincible. I can go anywhere. But what's his name? John Kennedy, the guy with the overly amped
Mhm.
accent, Senator John Kennedy. I saw him on Fox, of course. I never watched Fox, but the clips bubble up. I think, has that
Yeah, yeah.
accent, the over the top folksiness, even though he studied at Oxford, but he has to be. But I think the worst thing that's preventing people from getting vaccinated is Barack Obama's birthday party. Did you see that clip? That's why so many Americans are not being vaccinated. He's sending the wrong message. He needs to cancel it. And meanwhile, I feel like calling his office, and I actually occasionally will call these numbers. Call your congressman, I tried to get through to his office. You can't get through. But I wanted to say, and not a peep about Sturgis. I mean, that's the obvious 700,000.
Sure, yeah.
But the Obama birthday party with 400, and he pared it down, and all the people that were vaccinated, as far as we know, that's the biggest.
That's the problem.
And for him to just, you're that transparent in your button pushing, and it works. And one of the things I had come up with, I maybe want to do an impression of him someday. He tries everything has to be folksy. So it's like getting that bill through Congress is going to be tougher than getting a possum to ride side saddle on a June bug. And he's so like us. He's so like us.
I love it. That's a great impression of
I'll work on it.
Yeah, I'll have you on. You should do these characters like on the podcast. I should just be able to pull you up and be like,
yeah,
hey, we're going to talk to Senator Sturgis.
Right. That's right. Hey, I did a whole CD of impressions and it didn't work out. So what are you going to do?
That's all right. You got to do them. You got to do them live. Like
You got live. My theory is you do them, you nail it, and you do 1 minute animations. That's my plan.
All right.
My MacBook Air will allow me to do some audio editing,
Well, cool, man. Thanks for jumping on and doing this. It was, you came in at the last moment, and we got all the tech issues worked out. And there you go.
You took a good day, turned it into a bad day, and then made it an even better day. So that it's a good arc.
All right, that's
my meltdown is now in the rearview mirror, and I like it. And I learned something new about how my Mac works now, so that's good.
Cool.
Always good hanging out, Dan.
You are officially now a comedian American. I'm going to put you in the herd. It's my
like
new political party. I'm going to start it as a party. It's our third party. I want comedians to be at every event. I want a comedian to be a moderator at the debates.
Yeah.
Cannot have a public event without a comedian also having a microphone.
And we need to get one up into space.
And a comedian in space.
Space.
Just a comedy satellite that just goes around all the time, just
There you go.
hitting jokes in every
Perfect.
language.
Yeah,
I
I like it.
Well, cool,
Yeah.
man. We'll circle back around. Everybody, this has been the Comedians Americans podcast. Get out there, be a comedian in America, and join the herd.